Good morning, Dr. Gold. My name is Lauren Miller, and I'm here on behalf of plaintiff lawyers in this case. Can you please state your full name again for the record?
Ellen Gabrielle Gold.
And who are you currently employed by?
Forever Eagleman Pharmaceuticals.
You started working at BI in September 2006 as an associate director, correct?
Correct.
And by your title, associate director, it says medical safety. Was that the department that you were in?
The department was called Drug Safety and Information, DSI.
And what about this role changed when you were promoted to senior associate director in September 2008?
Not a lot. The associate director needs more supervision than a senior associate director, but the work that's being done is very similar.
So in February of 2010, you became an executive director, right?
Yes.
And was that within the same department that you were in before?
Yes.
During the time that BI held the NDA for Zantac, do you know how many risk management physicians worked on that product?
Can you clarify if you mean at one time or over the course of the years?
I guess probably both. We'll start with over the course of the years.
I can recall 3 different physicians who were responsible for Zantac over the course of the years.
Can you tell me their names and the years they were responsible for it to the best of your memory?
The first physician I remember working on Zantac was Ekaterina Walker. Do you want me to spell her name?
Please.
Ekaterina Walker, Walker.
And what years did she work on Zantac?
I'm guessing that it was from when we acquired Zantac, which I believe was 2006, until probably 2010, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, who was after her?
Connie Winslow, Winslow.
What years did she work on Zantac?
Again, I really would be guessing probably 2010 to 2012. Again, I guess maybe 13, maybe even a little longer. I don't recall when Connie Winslow stopped taking care of Zantac.
And who was the third physician?
Third one, Heike Seidler. It's Heike. And then I don't recall how to spell her last name. I can't remember if it's Siedler. It's my best guess.
Okay, I want to go just quickly on your CV back prior to your time at BI. So this is going to be on page, it's going to be 3 and 4 of the CV, but I probably won't ask you many CV specific questions. You mentioned that you were a practicing physician. Can you tell me about kind of that time pre-BI, your work?
Sure. I finished my fellowship training in 1989, and for 2 years worked at Columbia Presbyterian. And I was general oncologist. I actually had a special interest in lymphoma at the time. In 1991, I moved to Beth Israel Medical Center, and I stayed there until 2002. Again, general oncology, but there was a large focus at that time on breast cancer. I'm also a hematologist, and I ran the outpatient hematology program or a clinic. Also, at the time, I was very involved in some HIV-associated hematology activities. And I was very involved in the fellowship and residency training programs. In 2002, I left BI for a very short time, went to a private practice in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and there is a general oncology practice. I did a lot of breast cancer work there as well. And in 2003, I went to New York Presbyterian Hospital, Weill Cornell, again, working mostly in treating breast cancer patients. I was involved in some phase 2 and 3 trials and ran one of the clinics. And I left there in 2006 to join industry.
When you mentioned that you're a general oncologist, are you working with patients, seeing patients?
Yeah, my focus of the work that I did all through everything that you see here from graduation onward was clinical. My primary responsibilities throughout my practice of medicine was in taking care of patients and always having a very strong role in the residency, fellowship, training programs.
Were you diagnosing patients, treating patients, some of both?
Very few well, let me back up. For the oncology patients, it was very unusual if I were to make the diagnosis. They were referred to me because of their diagnosis. The hematology patients, who I took care of throughout my career, I often made the diagnosis, but again, they were referred to me with some abnormality that needed further assessment, and it was not uncommon for me to be able to identify the cause for the abnormality and diagnose a condition.
What is pharmacovigilance?
So pharmacovigilance is the science of reviewing medical available information to understand the safety of a product.
And when you said available information, what is that? What's the available information that should be?
From scientific literature, from wherever source might provide contributions to the understanding of the safety of a product. So it's very broad.
Can you tell me what a safety signal is?
A signal is an event or cluster of events that may represent something associated with the exposure to the product, to a pharmaceutical product.
So is signal detection at BI something that falls under the pharmacovigilance department?
Yes.
Wouldn't you want to understand in aggregate the effects or potential adverse events of drugs that have the same active pharmaceutical ingredient?
So I'm not a signal assessment expert, and I think there's more nuance to signal assessment than simply relying on the active ingredient.
Did you ever receive reports of stability testing that was done on ranitidine?
No. Not to the best of my knowledge.
Do you know if the pharmacovigilance department was ever aware of discoloration or odor issues of Zantac?
No, I'm not.
Do you know if BI ever investigated whether or not the instability of ranitidine could pose a potential risk to consumers?
No, I don't.
Do you know, what do you know about NDMA?
Very little.
Have you had any conversations with anyone at BI about Zantac and NDMA?
So I did speak to other people at the company about the fact that we had heard about this through the press, but no details about the contents of the information.
Do you agree that a drug company has the responsibility to be proactive in risk identification and risk minimization?
Yes.
Can you please pull up Exhibit 257? Okay, do you see the title of this publication? It says Relationship Between Histamine 2 Receptor Antagonist Medications and risk of invasive breast cancer?
Yes.
Let's just look, if you can go back up, please, at the abstract. And I'm going to look at the sentence right before the section that says conclusions. And it says current users of ranitidine had a 2.2-fold, and it shows a confidence interval of 95%, 1.1 to 4.3 increased risk of ductal carcinoma. That was confined to a 2.4-fold confidence interval, 95%. At 1.2 to 4.9, increased risk of estrogen receptor positive, progesterone receptor positive ductal carcinoma. Do you see that?
Yes.
Have you seen this study prior to today?
Yes, I have. Have I seen this abstract? Yes.
And when did you see it?
In the course of preparing for this deposition.
Before preparing for this deposition, had you seen this publication?
No, I had not.
Did you find this publication on your own?
No.
Do you know if this publication was reviewed or considered by anyone in BI's pharmacovigilance department?
No, I don't.
Do you agree that this is published literature indicating pharmacovigilant relevant information?
I agree that this is published literature that includes information about the risk of cancer. So it's a safety risk, yes.
And that risk of cancer, what you just called a safety risk, they're associating it with ranitidine use, correct?
According to what I'm reading here. Yeah.
And do you agree that this publication should have, at the very least, been investigated for the potential of adverse events?
I agree that an article that talks about our product and a safety topic should be investigated for the identification of adverse events.
Okay, and this article, which talks about your product and cancer diagnoses, should have been investigated, correct?
I wouldn't have chosen the word investigated, but I agree it should be reviewed for the identification of possible risk of case reports, or adverse event reports.
So earlier you told me that, you know, the first thing that a risk management physician would do is maybe identify a study as I think we called it a safety observation, right? If they came across published literature that they felt might be relevant and needed to be investigated, it would be, you called it a safety observation.
Yes.
And this study we established was published in 2008, which is during the time that BI held the NDA for over-the-counter Zantac, correct?
Yes.
Okay, can we please pull up Exhibit 256? Okay, and do you see the title at the top of this publication? It says cimetidine use and risk of breast, prostate, and other cancers.
Yes, I see it.
When you took over as the vice president for global pharmacovigilance at BI, you weren't made aware of this study, correct?
That's correct.
Dr. Gold, are you aware of whether any signal assessment was ever done evaluating Zantac and a possible signal of association with cancers?
I'm not aware of it.
Are you aware of whether any safety evaluation was ever done evaluating Zantac usage and a possible association with cancer?
Not that I'm aware of.
Are you aware of whether the issue of Zantac usage and a possible association with cancer was ever raised with the Risk Benefit Committee?
Not that I'm aware of.
We can mark it as Exhibit 585 for the record. Okay, do you see in the upper right-hand corner that this is a BI document?
Yes.
And do you see that it's from April 2010?
Yes.
And do you see there, I guess that's the title where it says ranitidine 150 milligram tablets?
I see that.
And then if we look at the next paragraph, it says ranitidine hydrochloride is subject to physical deformation and discoloration when exposed to relative high humidity of 75%. Do you see that?
Yes.
Were you ever made aware of these findings that ranitidine is sensitive to high relative humidity?
Not that I recall.
Were you ever made aware of these findings that storage temperature of ranitidine is critical?
Not that I recall.
Did anyone ever make you aware whether Zantac pills were known to discolor and break down when exposed to heat or humidity?
Not that I recall.
Were you ever made aware of whether pill discoloration and odor are signs of a change in the chemical composition in the drug?
Not that I recall.
Were you ever made aware of whether changes in chemical composition may raise safety concerns with the drug?
Not that I recall.